Morning, everybody. Nice to see you here, those of you who are in the building. It's always good to see people coming back. And I want to especially greet all the sea of faces and names I see on the screens in front of me. Our message is getting out all over the country. Our message is getting out all over the country. Please mute yourself at this time, any background noises. We're working with a new program, new software, and it's going to be much better for larger audiences, but it will take us a week or two to figure it all out. So say a prayer. I think this will be great this morning. We've already done an opening prayer, so I'm going to not do another because I'm going to do one or two in the service itself. Today's discussion is about a subject a lot of people don't like to talk about, and it's about money. And Judith is here, and Reverend Judith, she'll say, I love money. But it's a subject that isn't always, when you hear a pastor or a priest talk about money, usually they go, oh my God, and they reach for their wallets, or they're trying to get some money, and that's not the case. We will talk about it, though. I borrowed quite a bit from Raymond Charles Barker, who is our founder, and that means he's the first minister here, the founding minister, and it was one of his favorite talks and one of his ideas, and he created a very abundant consciousness, and which started us off here in New York. So I have a couple of quotes before we get into it. I was trying to find some things to make it a lighter presentation, so I found a few. Alan Cohen wrote once upon a time, the cause of poverty is not scarcity, it's fear and small thinking. Amy Lee said, choose joyful abundance in your heart and be unbounded, free and relaxed. Be relentless with your choice, and it will make your mark. And then Marianne Williamson, who we all know, we see her on television often, the key to abundance is meeting limited circumstances with unlimited thinking. I like that one. And if we go back to Mark Twain, you of a younger generation may not even know of him anymore. He said, if you want love and abundance in your life, give it away. So give love and give abundance if you want it. And then a couple more. And Jimmy, I'm going to need that sponge up here. Okay. I am one with the power that created me. I am totally open and receptive to the abundant flow of prosperity that the universe offers. All my needs and desires are met even before I ask. And then Louise Hay, I am divinely guided and protected, and I make choices that are beneficial for me. I rejoice in other people's success, knowing there is plenty for all of us. The journey, according to Mark Victor Hansen, to financial freedom starts the minute you decide you were destined for prosperity. The minute you decide you were destined for prosperity and not scarcity, for abundance and not lack. And he said, isn't there a part of you that's always known that? And then he asked the question, can you see yourself living a prosperous life? A life where there's more than enough? And he says, it only takes 1 minute to make that decision. Decide it now, decide it today. One more, because there's lots of them. When you undervalue who you are, the world will undervalue what you do, and vice versa. And that came from Susie Orman. I guess I'll give you the last one. This came from Bob Proctor. See yourself living in abundance, and you will attract it. It always works. It works every time with every person. And so that is. And then, where do we get all of our ideas about abundance and lack of money and prosperity? Usually it starts with our family of origin, right? You hear me talk about that every week. We talk about it in terms of the 4 agreements. We talk about the things in terms of our grandparents and our parents, their ideas about money. So we have work to do. Just one little funny quote from Ram Dass. He said, "If you think you're enlightened, go spend a week with your family." And I laughed when I saw that because it's always an interesting experience. So let's get into money as being a spiritual idea. Raymond Charles Barker said money is God in action. It's God's idea of circulation in my life. And he very boldly, this goes back many years, he says, "We are discussing money today." And when I was thinking of this lesson, I thought, this is not the kind of lesson most ministers really like to give, but it's important. The people who don't have it, Barker said, want more of it. And the people who, he said, the people who have it want more of it, and the people who don't have it want it. He said, there isn't a person in the world who would admit to having too much and who would not like to demonstrate a little bit more. So what is this money that we're talking about? What is this money we're discussing? Today, I mean, you all read the newspapers, right? You watch TV to some extent. Even if you try not to, you can't escape some of it. Today with, this is the 2020s, we're experiencing inflation at a record high. I've spoken to several people this week in counseling sessions and just in conversation where there's a lot of worry and concern about finances, about money, its valuation. We've done quite a bit of counseling this past month. It's one of the main calls that we get. And I won't get into the details of those calls, but there's an underlying like, geez, what am I going to do? There's considerable amount of fear and doubt because people are noticing changing prices at the grocery store, and many of you callers are from all over the nation, and you're noticing as you go to the gas station, what used to be $30 is now $110 for your gas. And we're seeing it at the grocery store. We're seeing it, it's part of everybody's conversation right now. And it's understandable why people would be confused and worried. So Barker said, we don't know whether the value of money is dependent upon the gold that's locked in Fort Knox, which happens to be in Kentucky, or whether the value of money is dependent upon the stock market, which seems to affect money. And people worry when our country or other countries, start printing out tons of money because as we devalue currency, we fear that things are going to get out of spiral, out of control. So in light of all that, I thought, well, this is the time to talk about money. And Barker's talk addresses most of these ideas. In light of all the discussion in the news and people's commentary lately to me about rising prices, inflation, it's a good idea if we discuss money and cleared our thinking on the subject of money from a metaphysical point of view. Because this is the place where you'll get some peace, calm, and you won't buy into all the news. And I was thinking, well, Barker did this talk probably, if I had to guess, 50 years ago. And he was the founder of our center. And I was also thinking of Buckminster Fuller, who described something you've heard me talk about before, the human knowledge curve, which is doubling. It's called the knowledge doubling curve. But Fuller noticed that until the year 1900, human knowledge doubled approximately every century. Every century, all we knew doubled, right? By the end of World War II, which I remember to be, I think, 45, if I'm not mistaken, human knowledge was doubling every 25 years. So we went from it doubling every century to it doubling every 25 years. Mr. Fuller at that time said human knowledge, I don't know what year he wrote that, is doubling every 13 months. So you went from every 100 years to every 25 years to every 13 months. That's amazing, right? And the latest I could find came from IBM, who said the Internet of Things, is the way they expressed it, is leading to the doubling of knowledge, human knowledge, every 12 hours. So that's really quite astounding. And just in the past month in my reading, because I try to keep up to date as best I can, I was looking at Elon Musk's company, particularly SpaceX, where he put 2,000 satellites into the universe, 48 just in the last month of May, 2 months ago now. And they're able to bring like internet and information to the most remote places of the planet, to the poorest places. There's no place that they can't go to anymore. So that brings tons of information to any point on Earth, over the oceans and even the most desolate places where people now can connect into a world of information that they never had before, resources and information about health and wellness and every good thing as well. And the same company has developed reusable rockets, so making this whole space exploration, it brings down the cost tremendously. So we've come a long way in science and medicine, and we know that human knowledge is increasing at such a speed that it's mind-bending. The future is going to have a lot of artificial intelligence, and no one really knows where that's all going to go to. But one thing we know is life and creative intelligence is moving forward, and it moves forward by means of all of us, the whole human race. And also we know that there's a lot of inequities in the world, certainly. But from a religious science standpoint, and this won't satisfy everyone, but it's the way we look at it. We understand that life moves forward by means of consciousness. And what used to be a world, when I was a kid, China would have been, no one knew much about China. No one knew much about any of these countries. You'd hear about something they would do 3 months later or 6 months later, but the world is a much smaller place. If something is done here now, my God, messages are gone from one side of the globe to another. So it's becoming a smaller world. People are waking up. People are speaking up. So we acknowledge there are inequities in the world, certainly, but the average person in our society today has access to much more comfort and information than they ever have at any other time in history. Now, you could focus on what's missing as you walk through the streets of New York. I mean, we all can see things that are very unpleasant to us, but that's me looking at the problem. But if you want to look at it, if you want to pull back, we have to acknowledge that the amount of information and good and that's available to us right now is unparalleled. Most people don't really focus on what they have. This was a comment Mr. Barker made, Dr. Barker made. He says they don't remember, that stuff. We tend to remember. As you think back in your life, you don't remember the struggles, but we've all had struggles. We tend to a little bit romanticize our past, and we really don't acknowledge that we've been through a lot, and we've grown, and we're growing in consciousness. And I just want to point out, if you have an iPhone, like I do over here, I won't pull it out, everybody knows what an iPhone is. If you have an iPhone or you have a smartphone, Android, whatever kind you use, I'd like to point out that iPhone or that modern Android, in most cases, is 1,000 times faster than the supercomputers of the 1980s. And that's right in your hand. I remember my first computer having, I think it was 2 gigs, and now as I'm trying to work with organization of photos, there's something like 300 gigs that are, it's just unbelievable. So your phone is more powerful than the computers that were used for early space missions. You have on your phone, I don't know if you realize it, you have access to all the encyclopedias. See, when I was a kid, people were trying to tell me, go sell Encyclopedia Britannica, You've probably had one in your house when you were younger or knew about them. Or we would buy books of maps, or we would buy the great books for our libraries, and we try to acquire great music on our vinyl records. But now all of that is in the palm of your hand. All the knowledge, all the music, you have Google. I mean, you really, it's like, just think about what you have. If you need information about healing, and you need information about medical circumstances, you have it. You have more. You may not know how to use it, but you certainly have it with you if you have a modern day phone, any kind of smartphone actually that has a connection. So we have an increased understanding of the world and the universe itself, and more so than any king or queen would have 100 years ago, 50 years ago. Scientific discoveries have made it clear that the universe is alive, the universe is fluid, if you will, and it's eternally flexible. It's always in flux, and it's always in a state of change. It never stops, and it'll never stand still, not for an instant. You might try to stand still, you might try to keep things to be the way they are, but it doesn't work that way. So it's smart of us to kind of like get with it and realize, okay, life is going to change. It's going to continue to change. And it would be good for me to get with the program, because if I resist it, it's going to happen anyway. So I learned early on when I got into ministry, it's like I need to align myself with the givingness of life. I need to align myself with what Spirit is doing rather than resist it. As we view the universe of infinity, as we think about eternity and this activity, and we consider our planet and ourselves in relation to this great cosmic order. I mean, we used to have 9 planets when I was a kid, and now there's, the planets, the galaxies, it goes beyond, it's beyond anything any of us ever knew of my generation. We behold now a universal field it seems endless, and it's full of spectacular order and right action. There's an intelligence that's beyond our comprehension, and it lives in us, and it responds to us. So we might say its first necessity, the first necessity for us to understand is that the universe itself is energy, it's activity. You can think of it as divine activity. We usually phrase it that way. Some of the younger generation will want to call it energy. It's full of energy, and that's okay. The thing to understand, it's never static. You're living in a fluid thing. It's very, very fluid. It's very flexible. The universe is forever in a process of change, would be one way to think of it. From my studies years ago, Heraclitus, pre-Socratic, would say, you never stand in the same river twice. And what he meant by that is, you can be in the same place, the same this, whatever it is, but it's always different. Every day is different. So if you can kind of like tune into that, every moment is a new moment, every encounter is a holy encounter, and if you can drop the stories that you have about people and resentments, and you can really wake up seeing life fresh with a prosperous, abundant consciousness, then you will begin to create from that vantage point. As we think of the universe and our place in it, please see yourself as being forever guided by intelligence, ever guided by something within which is forever producing new forms and new creations. It's kind of like you don't know that your thinking or your belief system just creates everything. So all of the things, you get to think anew and create anew. All kinds of new experiences are available to you. When you start to realize that there is this connection you have, this divine connection, and that you have guidance, there is spirit within you that attempts to get your attention. I've heard it said, and I sometimes say, you have an internal guidance system. And Emerson would say it's wooing you, like it's trying to get your attention. If you'll just pay attention to that which is within you that knows, you're going to start to see things differently if you invite that spirit in, or if you allow yourself to be informed in that way. If you can realize this, that you have this gift, if you have this thing within, then you're going to understand that this whole process is very alive. It's an intelligent universe, and it's a very flowing thing and you have the ability to participate in it. And if you do this, you're going to start to think of your personal prosperity as a flowing thing also. You'll begin to understand that there's nothing static about your money, nothing fixed, and you're going to start to let go of some of the things you say about money. The average person, this is coming from Barker, the average person has stopped their own prosperity because they have concluded that prosperity is money in the bank, or prosperity is money under the mattress, or prosperity is to be found in tied up in an investment. And he said, instead of seeing prosperity as something that's very much fluid and flowing, and an inlet and an outlet of your mental activity, it comes out of me, it comes out of you. There's a universal pulse beat, he said, that keeps this great flowing, pulsating universe always unfolding. It's dynamic. And then he said many people tune into, they would avidly read newspapers in his day, or start to tune into TV. Now the internet to check the news, to check in on inflation, stagflation, the economy, see how the economy is doing, see how their IRAs are doing. Whenever the market goes up, people rejoice. When it goes down, they moan and they come into a place of fear. And he said they've become very dependent for their feelings of prosperity upon a set of statistics presented to them by authorities in the financial field. I could do another talk on how that happens in the medical world. You know, we get information, then we get dependent, and then all that stuff. So, but now we're talking about finances. So if the stock market comes down, you know, there's a panic. And he said, money is a circulating thing. When I begin to feel fear or lack, and that happens, he said, I immediately begin to work on my own consciousness. And that's the suggestion for today. You know, if you're going through some of this, and I know some of you are because we've gotten the phone calls, we begin to work on our own consciousness, not with the question of how can I make more money, but with the question, what do I need to have, what do I need to do to have money circulating in my world? How can I loosen up my fear around money? How can I understand money as a spiritual idea so I have greater comfort? Prosperity is going to be the circulation of money in your world. I mean, for you. So there has to be a shift in it where you don't think of scarcity and like I can't keep up with it. Because in fact, for you and me, it's a movement, it's an activity, it's a flow. And then he said, I have often defined prosperity as being a state wherein I'm always able to do what I want to do at the time that I want to do it. In the older religions, which many of us have come out of, they've been telling us for as long as any of us can remember that money is a dangerous thing, it's an evil thing, it's a sinful thing. In a metaphysical church, a New Thought church or center, we do not believe that. But there are countless people in the world who believe exactly that. And we look at them in amazement, for while they believe that money is the root of all evil, they're forever trying to get more of it. So if you believe that money is evil, then Barker said, why work with it? Why use it? He says, if you think it's so terrible, he said, maybe you should go try to find other ways, go home to live with your extended family or a relative or somewhere, and just don't bother with it. And I don't know if he was joking when he said that. He claimed next that money is a vital part of this necessary circulatory system of this present time. And it's a necessity for the economic health of all of us. It must be a spiritual idea, and that's the best way to start thinking about it. The moment you're able to shift your attention from the concept that money is bad or evil or there's not enough of it, to the belief that money is wonderful, as Reverend Judith said, something like that when we started today, and Louise would say that whenever the subject would come up. If you can bring yourself to a place where you think it's wonderful, and I love to share it, and I have plenty to use and plenty to share, and you really believe that, then things will start to change for you. The moment you do this, you'll begin to have a greater circulation of money in your life. Whatever you love increases, and anything we criticize or fearful of moves away from us. The first step towards abundance, he said, is to begin to love it, because it is the means by which the universe is using right now to maintain a circulation of goods and services. And he says, don't dam it up, and don't hoard it, and don't put a fence around it. So I had to think, what was he talking about that? Like, it probably means don't put it under a mattress, don't guard it, don't. He spoke about a deck of cards, and he says the joker's in the middle, and he says if you spend all your life hoarding money, he says it won't do you a heck of a lot of good, and it's probably going to go up, you'll go on to the next dimension, and it'll be there for somebody else. He says you want to have circulation. He said circulation of money is necessary. Circulation of everything. Circulation is necessary to our body if we want to live. We've been through a pandemic that most of us have not remembered living through anything like it. And our economy has come to a virtual halt. And we've seen and felt the results of that. When the economy's shut down, bad things start to happen. Our money needs to be in circulation. Circulation is necessary in the field of economics. It's important for our country's health. It's important for all the countries of the world. Therefore, we can assume that circulation is necessary also for us. Even they used to teach me in the New Thought, even if you have a little bit to give it. You can tithe $2 to something. It isn't whether you tithe $2 or $200. It's getting into the habit of giving. Giving shows that you have trust, that you're supplied and supported. So you prime the pump by starting to give to the things you believe in and the places that support you, as an example. So circulation's important in our accounts. More than that, in our mental attitude about money, we've got to kind of think that there's plenty to use and plenty to share and plenty to spare. You want to get there. I must believe, he said, that I am living in a universe which is self-sustaining. And if I'm living in a universe which is self-sustaining, I am definitely a part of it. And I can certainly learn to be self-sustaining myself. The universe is saying to us, if we're receptive to the idea of money and supply, if we're really open and receptive to it, we will start to demonstrate it and have it. For no good thing is ever withheld from those who love life. Now, the old biblical sayings who say, those who love and serve the Lord, same idea. No good thing is withheld from those who love life and love people. And money is a good thing, but you have to believe that money is a good thing. If you're hanging on to those other ideas, it's kind of like you're going to elude it. It's going to be just out of your grasp. So we want to do a little bit checkup and inquiry this week on our thoughts about our supply and money, because I'm going to talk next on how we sabotage ourselves with this. We must be willing to live in a state of financial flux. And when I read that, I thought, I don't like living in a state of financial flux, where it seems good and then it's not, and it's up and down and all that. He said, we want to be willing to live in a state where there's going to be change and get some comfortability with that. Because during changing times, we must learn to live and have some faith and go through these times without fear. If you can do this, knowing you're supplied and supported even when things are up and down, he said, when the barometer on our bank account goes down, it's merely an indication that it's down and it will go up again. He said, well, and I can say, I have noticed, the center has investments, by the way. It has the building, it has investments. I have noticed this past year there's been a lot of ups and downs. And I was going to look more and more, and it was starting to make me nervous. And I thought, Greg, you have to stop. When our investments are going down, I started to get upset because we're doing a lot of things right to promote and bring our center to the whole nation right now. When they go down, I started to get upset. And then just last week, I saw them go up again. That was last Thursday or Friday. And Barker claimed this happens. Money, comes to you if you remain open and to the idea of money and you're receptive to it and all of that. Please don't develop the consciousness, that everything is going to hell, or I've said in other classes, the Chicken Little consciousness, which is the sky is falling, the sky is falling. That's not what we do here. We really work on knowing that all is well, spiritually in our affairs and also in our economic affairs. We want to do this until it becomes automatic, until you have an automatic pattern, subconscious pattern within you that knows that you're a part of God and you're supplied and supported. It might be good for you, for me, to repeatedly tell yourself, I am supplied, and I am supported, and I love money, and money loves me. Isn't that what you said? Something like that. Yeah. I am supplied, and I'm supported, and I love money, and money loves me. Over time, you will develop a prosperous consciousness if you keep training yourself to see this. People who have the greatest freedom in money are the people who no longer even have to think about it. They have arrived at a subconscious conviction that they will always have it. And they don't think of it just in terms of their jobs or their social security. They have this consciousness. They always are deeply convinced of that fact. Barker said, the people who have trouble in regard to money have not yet conceived of themselves as living in a world of financial freedom. And so if you're struggling with it, this is what he's saying. If you're having trouble in these areas, he said, you've not yet convinced yourself that you can live in a world with financial freedom. So that's the inner work that we would do that he's suggesting. And he said, we're not talking about being millionaires, multimillionaires, and all of that, and having some kind of jet set life, though that's certainly possible for people too. But we're talking about most people have not yet convinced themselves that they can live well and live comfortably. And certainly we can do that. If you stay plugged in with us here every week, every Thursday, we're going to keep reminding you that you are connected with Source, you are one with the One, and you have everything available. So there's fear of this subject, especially right now in the world, that it doesn't have to be in you. So this is a new thought gathering right here today. I'm thrilled to see people, much larger group here on Sunday in person, and all of you on the Zoom call. It's a new thought gathering, and there's always a few questions that come up around the subject of money. So I was looking at Dr. Barker's notes, and I know a couple of the questions, so I thought I'd throw them out. And one of the students from that gathering he had says, doesn't money come from my work? And he said very quickly, no. And then he went on to say, there are men and women, executives, managers who work only 1 or 2 hours a day. Or they might work 1 day a week in the office, 2 days a week from home now, right, through Zoom and everything they do. They work, not like a 40-hour job. He says they work different kinds of jobs. And he says many of them have a month's vacation every year also. And he says they receive enormous salaries. And then he commented, they receive their money because they are considered to be worth that much money and more. And the reason they're considered to be worth this much is, he said, that they have convinced themselves that they are worth it. And it goes also without saying that they've done what they've had to do along the way, without a doubt, to get experience and education and experience. But life is not holding back. The very fact, if you can convince yourself that you're worth more, in every area of your life, then you're going to attract it. We've done other talks on developing bigger buckets. So the bigger buckets idea is just having a greater sense of worth and knowing that you deserve it. The primary factor, he said, is that they have convinced themselves, these are people who become very successful with money, the primary factor is that they have convinced themselves that they are really worth it, and undoubtedly developed the expertise that they've needed to receive their pay. When you are convinced that you are worth more money, he said, you will walk up to your employer and you will say that I want a raise, and most often you will receive it. And then he added, but you'll never receive that raise if you merely want a raise, but you're not convinced yourself that you're doing a better job than you did a year ago. You're not going to receive the raise if you're always watching the clock and you're squandering your time on the job, always on your phones or always on your devices. He says, you won't get the raise. It won't even be the job. What it be is you're not convinced yourself you're worth it. So it's an inner process. He said, you will get your raise only when you are convinced in your own subconscious mind that you are worth it. Obviously, then you don't want to be working against yourself. You always want to be doing your best in anything you do. We must first convince our own minds that we're reminding people, always reminding people, the importance of building up a sense of self-worth. One of my great commitments for the past 25 years is to work with the Louise material, which we teach every Thursday night on our Zoom call. Because that class is designed to build up your self-worth. I love, accept, and approve of myself exactly as I am would be something that would be said most weeks in our Thursday class. That class is designed to remind you of the power you possess and to build up that consciousness. And as you do so, you start to develop healing and prosperity in all areas of your life. So anyone who hears this call now or on YouTube or Facebook in the coming week, you're all invited to attend, as you are Sunday morning, at 10:45 and Thursday at 7. You might remember from Barker's talk on money as God in action, you might remember stories from the New Testament around Jesus, especially if you come from a Christian background. I can remember, in most cases, people came to him looking for help. And in most cases, there would be a question. You might not remember it. But he would ask the people, do you believe? So they're coming to him for something, right? And he'll say, do you believe? And if they said yes, what did he say next? He said, all right, it is done. And why? Because they had arrived at a point of self-conviction, and it was their own self-conviction that made the demonstration in their life. So they're using principle, they're using the law. Money is a subjective conviction you have within you. So if you know you have a prosperity consciousness and you've supplied and supported, you're going to start to, if one job closes, another one opens, you're not limited. Don't think of the job as the source of good. If money is a subjective conviction on the part of the individual, if you know you have it, meaning this consciousness of prosperity, if you really know you have it and you're supplied, it will show up. It has to. It happens according to the law. Let me explain a little bit more because there's something to clarify. When thinking about your supply of money, it's best to think, all right, this is God's idea in circulation. Money is God's idea of circulation. And say to yourself, I now subjectively accept the idea of money. I accept this as a divine thing without limitation. So you want to root out any thoughts of money being a problem, the root of evil, or any of that stuff that might be lingering from your past. And again, say, I accept this divine idea without limitation. I do not think of money in terms of any set amount when I'm doing prayer, he said. He said, don't pray for just what you need. Don't pray to get by when you're doing your affirmative prayers. Think of it in terms of plenty to maintain me in ease and freedom of action. Know when you say your affirmative prayers, there's plenty to use, plenty to share, and plenty to spare. The reason that we suggest that you don't treat just in terms of the amounts, he said, is wealth is a very relative thing. And one fact about the universe, the universal mind, is it always gives in abundance, and it will always give with more to spare. So don't do your affirmative prayer to just have enough to make your electric bill or your rent. Think and do your affirmative prayer in a much bigger or more expansive way, as I said earlier, with much bigger buckets, right? The universal intelligence works under a law of abundance, and I should say that again. for us to remember. The universal intelligence works under a law of abundance. You see it everywhere in nature. It's so abundant. There is no law of limitation. And that I probably should say about 10 times, because whenever I'm talking to anybody, this is what they bring to me in any type of, people call the ministers with the problems, and my job is to listen, of course, and then try to remind them of the truth. And there is no law of limitation, Barker emphasized throughout that talk. The universal intelligence works under a law of abundance, not limitation. But most individuals attempt to work under a law of abundance with an unconscious pattern of limitation. So I'll say that again. You might be affirming that life is abundant, you're supplied and supported, and that's wonderful, right? Life is good, life is abundant, I'm supplied and supported. That's wonderful, and it's worth repeating. But there is this thing with many people underneath, which is an unconscious pattern of limitation. So when you come into this teaching, you really want to dig up that stuff. You want to neutralize that stuff. When we do our affirmative prayer and something comes up that says, I'm not enough, I don't have enough, and any of that, we immediately work to neutralize that, to stop it and replace it with ideas of truth. Because otherwise we are self-sabotaging. We're proclaiming that we're supplied, and we're proclaiming we're abundant, and we know that the universal law works in abundance, and yet we have this underlying stuff that's tripping us up. He next said, most individuals have this unconscious pattern of limitation. Now, he's not necessarily talking about people who come to New Thought centers, who participate in abundant thinking, but he's talking about the world at large has bought into this. The idea that there's an inflation, and the idea that I don't have and I can't have and I'm not enough, and the world is falling apart. You do not have to be part of any of that. He says, because if you're letting these unconscious patterns just have full reign within you, you're going to be self-sabotaging the things. You're proclaiming you're supplied and supported and all of that, but you will self-sabotage. And we can help you, he said, and I can say that also here in the 2020s, we can help you with this. We can support you in rising your sights, having a more prosperous consciousness. I intend to have some prosperity courses coming in the near future. We have a Science of Mind class starting on Tuesday night. I believe it's next week. Is that correct? Yeah. Next Tuesday at 7. And we're going to follow that up with a prosperity course afterwards. But as we get back into the subject and try to bring it to a conclusion, people are not necessarily having the results that they want in their affirmative prayers with money. They're not necessarily demonstrating the money and the prosperity. And it's because they're affirming and praying for more income, and on the surface, that's okay, right? I'm supplied and supported. I might even state that I'm abundantly supplied and get all excited about it, and that's a great statement. I might even have an idea that I deserve a couple $1,000s a week or more, and that's what my visioning and my prayer work looks like. But if my subconscious pattern might be thinking, oh, Greg, you're not really worth it. You're only worth a couple hundred a week. See, there's the problem. You have the prayer out there that you're worth some amount, and you're looking for the perfect job. And then my subconscious pattern might be thinking, oh, no, you're not. Oh, no, you're not. So it's very tough to demonstrate what we're looking for in our vision if we have these things working underneath. If your inner belief or your subjective pattern has more power than what you're saying in your prayer, then you're going to have a problem. Once you work with that, once you work with negating that subconscious pattern, it will start to change. It's important to know that the universe is not holding back on you. The universe takes me at our own valuation. So it's really important to start getting excited about yourself and about your value and and know that you're something special and something wonderful. And know that you work on your deservability. And that's something we also do on Thursday nights, is we work on knowing that we're valuable. And each of us, it would be good for each of us to increase the consciousness of our own valuation in terms of our supply. As we do this, money starts to appear in our experience. All affirmative prayer treatment is an action of our conscious mind on the subconscious. So treat this way. You could say, money is God's idea of circulation. This idea I accept. This idea I now accept is the basis of all my affairs. Now, some of you will want a copy of this, and we'll get it to you. Money is God's idea of circulation. This is an idea I accept. This idea is I now accept as the basis of all my financial affairs. I like money. I believe that it is spiritual activity, that it is good. I use it with wisdom. I release it with joy. I send it forth without fear, for I know that under a spiritual law, it comes back to me increased and multiplied. If you will use this and really summon up some passion and subjectively accept it, you'll be amazed very soon with what you start to see. Money, again, is a spiritual activity. It's good, it's wonderful, and we ought to love it. It's not filthy, it's not sinful. It is actually God in action. The stock market is a financial barometer. We don't condemn it, we don't criticize it, we don't worry about it. I've learned not to worry about it. We merely leave it alone. We use it as an orderly part of our business world. We don't worry about the value of dollars, and we don't obsess about inflation. We don't talk and think about stagflation either, or the values going up and down. We, here at this teaching, who are convinced within ourselves that we are worth plenty of money, will always have plenty of money. We will always have money because the law of prosperity is based on the perpetual circulation of spiritual ideas, and they come to us always from our connection with Source. The greater circulation of thought that's pouring into our consciousness appears in our world as money in hand, or it comes into our bank accounts. It comes into us in every kind of opportunity if you start to believe that you are supplied and supported. We must open ourselves up to seeing all the financial opportunities around us. So if you're just thinking I'm getting my job from my check, if you just think I'm getting from one place, then you're missing out on a lot, because there's probably lots of things in your life that you just are not noticing. The process goes on eternally, despite the value of the dollar or the value of your IRA. The people who believe that their money is dependent upon the stock market, or believe their money is dependent upon valuation, or their money is dependent upon working more and more hours, are living under bondage. He said they're living under the bondage of limitation. And they don't demonstrate money. And what happens? He said they demonstrate worry. They demonstrate more fear because they're watching the prices, they're watching the markets, they're watching everything. So nobody on this call today wants to be setting themselves up for all of this negativity, right? You want to transcend it. Most people who come into this teaching really are learning to step up their consciousness in regard to this subject. If I devote all my thinking, and my thinking is the creative power in my world, and that's true for all of you. If you devote all your thinking to worry, and worrying about money, or anything else for that matter, the effect, the demonstration is going to be what you've been dwelling upon. So that's completely logical as well as completely true. Therefore, it's necessary to take our attention from money as a necessity of life, or worse, thinking of money as something that I don't have enough of, and begin to think of money as a spiritual idea, something good, something necessary in the normal circulatory system in this present age. Most of us can recall Louise saying, "Isn't money wonderful? I'm going to release it with joy. I refuse to worry, for there is plenty more money for me." So I want to close this lesson with a specific affirmative treatment for money. And I want you to be clear on this one idea. I'm not giving you a treatment to increase your salary. I'm treating for money. And after you read it and declare audibly this treatment for money, you must be willing to take it where it comes. If someone stops you on the street and invites you to go to a fine restaurant, what's your answer going to be? She said, who's paying? You're going to say, I'm going. They're inviting you. So next time somebody wants to take you out for lunch or whatever it is to the movies, you're going to say enthusiastically, yes. Say, that's God in action. Let your money come from any direction, right? If someone offers again to take you to lunch or dinner, say yes. If someone says to you, I want to give you something, and if it's at all usable, take it and say thank you. If it isn't usable to you personally, accept it anyway and give it to somebody who it will benefit. Remember, this is part of putting things in action. Remember, if money is God in action, if it's a spiritual idea in your life, then you want to welcome it with joy. And anything that resembles money, you say yes, yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. And then, be mindful too. You can start giving a little bit and just watch how things start to flow for you. Be a little bit more enthusiastic about money. Don't criticize people who have it. That's a big mistake. Don't compare yourself to anybody. Don't worry about how people have acquired their money or what means they have taken. Don't worry about any type of merchant. Don't have opinions on other people's success. Everyone is working with their own consciousness, and what other people are doing with money or how they're acquiring it is not your area of focus. It's not your business. So release the need to be critical of all that. Put your consciousness where it belongs, which is with yourself. Because the universe responds to you, right? If you start talking about other people and all that stuff, it's kind of like, it's going to not bring you what you want. A few weeks ago, I reminded the gathering here to hear no evil, speak no evil, see no evil. Don't be a part of it. Just don't be a part of it. Never criticize another person's good. What we're here to do as religious scientists or New Thought practitioners is to celebrate the good, see the good in all things. Release the need to have an opinion or a judgment on all of these types of things. We live in this teaching. We've learned we're here to see the good. We are the applauders. We see the good in people. We want to think of money as being God in action. And wherever you see large amounts of money, say to yourself, isn't that wonderful? I spent some time this week working with a different kind of group for a couple hours, and I listened to a couple young people's strong beliefs in the unfairness of life, and I had empathy when I listened. I absolutely knew that these folks, they were convinced, of their positions. So in one case, I could see the vitality, the great ability, the smarts, and I could see in this person, there were two, but one in particular had everything necessary to live a wonderfully abundant life. And this was somebody in their 30s. And I realized all of us have the right to be wherever they are. And for this individual, it looks like it's set in stone. They're creating a lot of misery, but those of us who really understand this teaching know that the universe is alive and there will always be other chances. So this particular individual that I was speaking with, there were two again, focused largely on what was wrong with everything. When you live from a place where what's wrong with everything, where you don't have enough and there's not enough and there's a lot of blame going on, when you do that, you're going to create a world that reflects just what you're thinking. I always quote my mother on this statement when she would say very simply to me, often, don't look to others, don't blame. She'll say it's entirely up to you. So, that's what we would say to you today. You can turn any of these situations around. You have the power. It's entirely up to you. All healing is self-healing. Prosperity, abundance, and money comes from where it is invited and when you know your worth. The human mind is ours. It has its tricks of limitation, and it gives it away every time. Barker said, if I treat myself for prosperity and go out and criticize someone else because they have plenty of money or how they got it, doesn't make any sense. What does any of that have to do with me? What does it have to do with my life experience and my good? If I'm critical of money, or my lack of money, any affirmative prayer I have becomes ineffective because my own criticism of money has erased its value. So we keep working with this. You're going to like money because it is God in action. Life loves a giver. Find ways to give. Give compliments. Give smiles. Share cards. Give a little financial support when you can. It's never about the amount you're giving. It's about taking the action and putting things into circulation. You want to learn to use your money with wisdom, release it in joy, and know it will return to you increased. Say to yourself, wait a minute, I always have enough money to meet my needs, and the infinite spirit is not going to stop my income at this point. There is no blockage in the universal system. The universe is always in a state of flux. If there's a blockage in the flow of money in my life, it must be a temporary human block which I have within my own consciousness. So now I release the block, I accept money, I appreciate money, I use it, and I'm not afraid of it. So I'm going to close with his treatment on money. This is Barker. And he said, I now subconsciously accept this affirmative prayer. There is only one creative cause, one God, one source. There is only one mind. There's only one life. This source, this God. There is only one substance, God. This present universe is the glory of good. It is a moving, flexible, fluid creation. It's alive with life, with abundance, and the richness of God and good. I abide in prosperity. Mind created me in order that it might act through me. Therefore, I am receptive to its abundance. I am receptive to its circulation in my life in the form of money. Money is God's idea of circulation in my world of finance. I accept this idea completely. I appreciate this idea. I like it. Money being God in action is absolute good. It is wholesome. It is a blessing to us, and I'm now prospered with it. I have no fear of lack, for I believe that I have plenty to use. It is God's activity in my world. It is God's activity in my bank account. It's God's activity in my investments. It is God's activity in everything to which I lay my hands. This money is flowing. This money is free. I do not attempt to lock it up. I do not put a fence around it. It is God's money. I let it flow in, and I let it flow out. As I release it, I know that it comes back to me, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. I am now free in money. I rejoice in it. I appreciate it. And I thank God for it. I have money forevermore. And so it is.